Annie was frantic that morning. Jason hadn't texted her all night. A thing he did very often for no reason that would be discernible to anyone on Earth but Jason. At the beginning of their relationship, she would hear from him so sporadically that she was continuously sure that he would just disappear from her forever. But then, just like that, he'd be there in her life again. Like magic. It would be his magnanimous self in front of her, beside her. He'd spend the day with her, and she'd feel like the only person, the absolute only person in the whole world. And with Jason, that was not a bad feeling, not a lonely feeling. It was an impenetrable one, because he, a man who chose what he did, and how he did it, and where he did it, and when, was choosing her. It felt, above all else, pristine. Now that they'd been together longer, Annie found herself accepting lesser and lesser forms of magic. If she hadn't heard from him, she didn't need a whole day with him. Just waking up to a text the next morning with a, "How are you, gorgeous?" was enough for her to move on and to be propelled back into euphoria. Though certainly a more tepid euphoria. In reality, she didn't even need that to move on. Just a, "Hey," or a smiley face would suffice. She knew somewhere, too, that even if he'd sent her a text with nothing written on it, just pressed send with a blank text, she'd likely have found at least some kind of reassurance in that. And really, that's what she was looking for. Affirmation of being cared about by the person she cared about. This morning, she'd woken up to nothing. Not even a smiley, which was her least favorite. "Why are you smiling?" she'd once texted back when she was extra exhausted and angry. All day, she imagined what he might say in response. "Smiling 'cause I love you. Smiling 'cause I can't stop thinking about you." But he never responded to the text. And out of anxiety, she texted him, "How's work?" Which he did respond to with, "Fine." This morning, the silence was making her crazy, and she raced around the kitchen, trying to convince herself of some kind of sanity. "Here's the fridge, and here's my hand opening the fridge, and here's a butter knife and an apple core," she'd think, as she moved with a haste that was directed at a destination she couldn't have verbally expressed, even to herself. She packed a quick lunch for work. She'd been trying to save money, so she'd bring a sandwich from home. Somewhere, she'd read of a woman who supposedly got a down payment for a house together this way, eating sandwiches from home and skipping Starbucks. So far, she hated it. But she had saved $17. Joy came in the kitchen, still beaming from movie night. "Good morning," Joy said. "I'm warning you now, if you haven't eaten the last donut, I'm eating it." "Eat it," Annie said. "I'm sick of those donuts anyway. I feel like crap after I eat them." Joy didn't say much after that. She ate her donut and made herself coffee and left for work. One time, Annie had heard Oprah say, "Charming is something you do. It's not something you are." And that quote bothered her a lot, because Jason, above all else, was charming. When they first met at a sunny backyard party, he went across the street to buy her a lemonade after the hostess informed her they'd just run out. "You didn't need to do that," Annie had said as he put the cool drink in her palm. Once, they'd been on a hiking trail, and he'd climbed a tree to grab her a branch of orange blossoms. "Here," he said. Sweat droplets pooled tightly on his forearm. Then there was last summer, when they'd binge-watched Better Call Saul, and she'd swooned over the scene when Saul sings to Kim on a voicemail. All week long, he called her phone and left her song messages. "Sometimes all I need is the air that I breathe and to love you," he sang. And she felt hot and sick and so in love. His charm was, or at least it felt like, the lifeblood that ran through their relationship. And sometimes, Annie feared that, without it, there was nothing there. She did love him, though. So much so that she wasn't sure anything else really mattered. Which was cliché, but sometimes things were just cliché. And in some ways, that was comforting, because it made her feel like she was a part of something big. The big, painful love that you hear so much about. Sleepless in Seattle love, she thought. Although she knew that wasn't the right reference, because she was fairly sure Tom Hanks was actually pretty nice in that movie.